My phone pinged and I saw Dad's text. "You're not one of us anymore. Don't come back." No call, no explanation, just those words hitting me like a slap. I sat there, frozen, staring at the screen. I didn't cry or yell. I just felt this heavy, quiet ache settle in my chest. They didn't know how much I'd done for them. For years, I paid the bills, kept the trust going, made sure their lives stayed comfortable. I covered every mistake, every gap without a word. But the one time I said no and they shut me out like I meant nothing. So I stopped. I stopped holding them up. And when I did, I could feel their world starting to shake. I'm Sierra Hawthorne. I was a finance officer in the Army, trained to handle systems and solve problems. Now, I run numbers, businesses, and when it's time, I make sure people face the truth. They think they can erase me? They're about to find out what I've been carrying all these years. And before I take you through what happened next, let me ask, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below so I know how far this story reaches. And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notifications for future stories. Now, let me tell you how it all started. I sat there, phone in hand, the screen gone dark, but Dad's words still seared into me. "You're not one of us anymore. Don't come back." No reply could fix that. No words could undo the truth behind it. I didn't move for a while, just sat on the couch, hands in my lap, dinner cold on the table. The house was quiet. Kids asleep, husband away on business. Just me and this heavy weight in my chest, like bricks where my heart used to be. I wasn't mad yet. I wasn't even sad. It was more like the world came into focus, sharp and ugly. The worst part? I wasn't surprised. They didn't call to ask why I said no. Didn't check if I was okay. They just cut me off, like I was nothing. But I was everything. I'd been the one holding it all together. The couch I bought for Mom after her surgery. The cabin trip Dad loves to brag about. I paid for it. The dining chairs I fixed after Kayla's wine spill. They never noticed. But I remembered every bit. For years, I kept it running. Bills, leases, their comfortable lives, all without a thank you. The one time I needed a break, they shut the door in my face. I wanted to scream, to call and demand why. But I didn't. Back in the Army, I learned silence can hit harder than words. I wasn't going to beg for their love. So I turned off my phone, left the uneaten dinner, and walked to my office. I logged into my system. If they didn't want me in the family, fine. It was time they saw how much of their world I'd been carrying. I sat at my desk, and the old Army instincts kicked in. I hadn't worn my uniform in years, but some things stick, like those late nights poring over spreadsheets that could make or break a mission. You learn fast that when things fall apart, feelings can't cloud your next move. So I did what I always did. I opened a blank notepad file and started typing. Not a letter or a diary, a list. At the top, points of structural dependency. Below it, I laid out every piece of my family's world I'd been holding up, whether they knew it or not. The escrow for Dad's Tahoe property, propping up his business deals. The trust fund Grandpa started, kept alive by my quarterly deposits. Kayla's school account, paid monthly from my business. Mom's nonprofit, running on my consulting checks. The corporate cards, backed by my credit line. Line after line, and I wasn't even halfway done. They saw me as the good one, the sister who made life easy. But I wasn't just helping. I was the foundation. I did it out of love, thinking that's what family does. But I'd been carrying them alone and they didn't even see it. In the Army, a CO once told me, "If they don't notice the work, you're doing it right." Back then, I took pride in that. Now it just felt heavy, a load I was tired of bearing. I stared at the list. 52 items. 52 ways I'd kept their lives running while they acted like I was just there. I could have called Dad, demanded an apology, made a big scene. But I didn't want sorry. I wanted them to understand. I leaned back, took a deep breath, and whispered, "You have no idea what you've just done." Not a threat. Just the truth. I didn't set out to tear everything down. Not at first. All I wanted was space, a clean break, a way to say, if I'm not family anymore, don't expect me to keep your world running. So, I chose where to start. The Tahoe escrow account. 4 years ago, Dad brought me in on it when his credit was a mess from an IRS mess nobody talked about. I co-signed, not for the deal, but because he looked me in the eye and said, "You're the only one I trust." Guess that trust had a shelf life. I logged in, pulled the documents, and filed to remove my name. Clean, legal, done. In 24 hours, the project would lose its backup guarantor. Not a bomb, but enough to make them feel the ground shake. Next, I opened the trust fund portal. Grandpa's name was on it, but my money kept it alive. Quarterly deposits, tax tricks, patches for their overspending. I wrote the withdrawal letter, uploaded my notarized copy, and hit send. I leaned back in my chair. No thrill, no vengeance. Just a deep, bone-weary tiredness. This wasn't about hurting them. It was about letting go of their weight. They never asked how I kept things together. Never noticed how I fixed their forgotten payments, their overspending, their mistakes that magically vanished. They thought it was luck. They never thought it was me. So I stepped away. Let them see it for themselves. No calls came. No emails. Silence, just like I expected. They wouldn't notice until things started to break. I didn't wait. I canceled the auto transfer to Kayla's tuition. Last semester, she burned through the family fund, called me crying, begging for help. Just this once. I made it work. That was before Dad's text, before they cut me out. I stared at the confirmation button, then clicked. Transfer canceled. Something in me settled. Not happiness, not triumph, just peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding it all together. I was letting it fall. 3 days after I pulled out of the Tahoe deal and canceled Kayla's tuition transfer, my phone wouldn't quit buzzing. First, texts from Kayla. "Hey, did something happen with the bank?" Then, "Sierra, I can't register for next semester." The payment bounced. And finally, "Are you okay? I need this fixed today." No apology, no questions about me, just panic over her problem. Then came the calls. 5 missed, 1 voicemail. I played it, her voice sharp with worry. "Sierra, it's Kayla. I don't know what's going on, but if this is about Dad's text, I had nothing to do with it. Please fix this. I'll fail out by Friday." Not a word about how I was holding up, just her tuition, her crisis. I didn't answer. Part of me wanted to fire back. "You only notice me now?" But the part of me that learned to stay calm in the Army kept quiet. Silence said more. By afternoon, she called again, her tone sharper. "Are you serious? I defended you when Dad called you cold and manipulative. I said you were stressed, that you always came through. Now I'm begging the finance office like some broke freshman." I almost laughed. I remembered driving across state lines to sit with her after a breakup. No questions asked, no thanks needed. Now I was the villain because I stopped bailing her out. That evening, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. The family group chat exploded. Not with concern for me, but with chaos. "Mom, what's going on with the trust?" "The quarterly report's empty." "Uncle Greg, I thought Sierra handled that." Mom again. She hasn't responded. This is unprofessional. Unprofessional. After years of quietly keeping their lives together, that's what they called me. I closed the chat. They were scrambling, but they still didn't get it. They saw cracks, not the whole structure I'd been holding up. And those cracks were spreading. By week's end, Kayla emailed again, short and bitter. "I don't know what your problem is, but you've messed up my life. I trusted you. I thought you loved me." Loved her? I'd burned through my savings, put my own plans on hold, fixed her mistakes time and again. But to her, love was just money in her account. I archived the email and stepped onto the porch. The night air felt lighter, like I could breathe for the first time in years. Something was breaking. Not just their world, but the weight I'd carried for them. And for once, it felt like freedom. When Kayla's world started to crumble, it was just the beginning. Mom's nonprofit, Hearts for Tomorrow, was next. And that crack was louder, messier, and way more public. For years, it had been her shining star, a women-led charity with financial workshops, housing grants, and big speeches. She was the local hero, smiling on stage with single moms, calling herself a servant of the community. But the truth? I was the one keeping it alive. I handled the books, filed IRS forms, fixed audits, hid overspending, built donor decks. When grants fell short, I covered the gaps. Nobody knew. And when I stopped, I didn't warn them. I just pulled the plug. It started small. I revoked my admin access to the charity's financial dashboard. Not enough to crash it, but enough to cause chaos. A few days later, Eliza, the assistant director, texted, "Sierra, we can't access the books. Your login's still master admin. Glitch or password issue?" I didn't reply. Then Mom called, her voice all soft and urgent. "Sierra, honey, we're in a bind. The city needs the Q2 transparency report, and Eliza can't pull it. Can you email it?" First call in weeks. No mention of Dad's text, no apology, just a favor. I didn't answer. Instead, I logged in, sent the Q2 report, then deleted the script that automated those reports. Small move, big impact. The board meeting was 4 days away. I didn't show. By Monday, Eliza emailed again, CCing the board. "Due to system errors, we can't present Q2 reports or confirm cash flow. Sierra Hawthorne may still have sole access." Panic set in. Mom panicked hardest. Her perfect image started to crack. Whispers turned into social media posts. Someone tweeted a screenshot of a miscellaneous adjustment from last year's taxes, a donation I'd fixed after it was mislabeled as a travel expense. I'd made it legal, but it looked bad. Comments piled up. Are these funds really helping families? "Where's the transparency at Hearts for Tomorrow?" Mom called again. I picked up. "Sierra, what the hell? This isn't petty. You're sabotaging me." I stayed quiet, then said, "I stopped being part of this when you decided I wasn't family." Her breathing hitched, then went cold. "You always knew how to twist the knife," she said. I hung up. That night I wrote in my journal, "Letting go of their version of me isn't sabotage, it's survival." I meant it. They built their lives on my work, my silence. Now I was done carrying them. Not to hurt them, but to free myself. They acted like nothing had happened. After Dad's text, the silence, and me stepping away from their world, they still thought a family dinner could erase it all. Roasted lamb and red wine to fix betrayal? I almost skipped it. But I went. Not to forgive, just to see their faces. It was at Mom and Dad's house, the same white brick place I grew up in. The porch lights glowed, a candle flickered in the window, and laughter spilled out as I rang the bell. Mom opened the door, her smile forced. "Sweetheart, you made it," she said, like she hadn't ignored me for weeks. Inside, Kayla sat sipping a cocktail, not even looking up. 7 of us were at the table. Mom, Dad, Kayla, my brother Nate, his fiancé, a councilwoman Mom was cozying up to, and me. Quiet, in navy, just there. Dinner was stiff. They asked about my work. I gave short answers. They chatted about charity events and Nate's wedding. I nodded. Then the councilwoman, Diane, turned to me. "Sierra, I've heard you were a whiz with Hearts for Tomorrow's finances, known for catching every detail." Mom cut in, voice tight. "Oh, that was ages ago. Sierra's moved on. We've streamlined things." Diane raised an eyebrow. "Funny, because last year's filings got leaked online. Some odd numbers. You'd have caught those, right?" The table went quiet. Kayla shifted. Nate coughed. Mom laughed too loud. "The internet loves drama," she said. But Diane pressed. You left, and now this. Coincidence? I set my fork down, looked at Mom, then Diane. No coincidence, I said. I used to fix their mistakes, balance the books, hide the questionable expenses. I did it because I thought I was family. When they decided I wasn't, I let the truth come out. Silence. Dad's knife froze. Kayla's glass stopped at her lips. Excuse me? Mom snapped. Kayla hissed, so this is revenge? I met her eyes. Number its consequences. Dad slammed his fork down. We invite you here and you humiliate your mother? I looked at him. You did that yourselves. I walked out before dessert. No scene, just a final glance at the family who'd leaned on me for years, now wobbling without me. Later, Diane texted, if you ever want to consult on a campaign, I need someone like you. I didn't reply, but I smiled. I didn't leave that dinner to make a scene. I left because I was done playing the role they'd written for me. For years, I'd been their invisible backbone. The one wiring money, fixing messes, never asking for thanks. But that night, seeing them flinch at the truth, I knew I didn't need to argue or yell. I just needed to stop. The next morning, I called our family accountant, a kind old man who didn't know the half of it. I'm stepping down as co-signer on the Hawthorne Trust, I told him. He paused. Sierra, without you, the whole structure. I cut him off, soft but firm. Let it fall. He sighed. I always thought you were the only grown-up in that family. I thanked him and hung up. Just like that, a dozen safety nets vanished. Then I logged into the shared utility accounts and canceled my autopays. I stopped the monthly donations propping up Dad's charities. I even pulled out of the college fund I'd set up for Nate's future kids, despite him calling me a joyless control freak, one Thanksgiving. It felt like shedding a heavy coat I'd worn too long. At first, they didn't notice. People like them, used to being carried, never look down until the ground's gone. 2 weeks later, Mom left a voicemail. Sierra, the mortgage bounced and the electric bill wasn't paid. I thought we had systems. Did something change? No apology, no concern for me, just her panic. I didn't call back. Then Nate texted, can you front the caterer deposit? Wedding budget's tight and Dad's been off. I read it twice, then deleted it. The worst was Kayla's voice memo. Not even a call. Sierra, I know we've had differences, but pulling out of the trust? That hurts us all. It's selfish. Family doesn't abandon family. She, who once called me an ATM with a superiority complex. I played it 3 times, then laughed out loud. They abandoned me first. They just didn't care until the money stopped. There was power in my silence, in not answering, in letting them scramble. Their perfect world was cracking because I stopped fixing their mistakes. For the first time, I slept without guilt, without alerts. Just peace. But peace doesn't last with people like them. They were starting to see that the sister they pushed out was the one holding their world together, and the fire was just getting started. The first sign of trouble came from Kayla, not my parents. At 7 a.m., my phone rang, her voice frantic. Sierra, the florist's check bounced, and the venue says Nate's balance is overdue. You handled that. What's going on? I stayed quiet, letting the silence settle. Then, calmly, I said, I don't handle it anymore. I hung up, her shock practically echoing through the line. That one call started it all. By afternoon, a friend at the bank tipped me off. The family trust was frozen. I'd withdrawn my signature authority as the financial officer, leaving no one to manage the funds. I didn't do it to hurt them. I just stopped carrying their weight. And just like that, they realized I wasn't just part of their system. I was the system. That night, my cousin Julie called. She'd seen Dad storm up to Mom's house, red-faced, yelling about, who's gonna clean this up now? And how could she walk away? Me, he meant. Let him yell, I told her. No one's listening. Julie paused. Sierra, they're falling apart. Mom slammed the door on him, said she warned him this would happen. I smiled, the first real one in days. The cracks were spreading. Nate texted the next morning. No apology, just a demand. You can't ghost us and leave us hanging. I've got a business, Kayla's got a wedding in 3 weeks. Fix this. No, please. Just entitlement. Like I was their employee, not their sister. I didn't reply. I forwarded his text to my lawyer with a note. This is what happens when you feed entitlement too long. By Friday, things broke wide open. Kayla's boutique was under review for unpaid suppliers threatening lawsuits. I used to fix those quietly, but not now. Dad's side investments, ones I'd kept afloat with clever accounting, were crumbling as clients bailed. Mom tried to hold it together, but even she couldn't stop the chaos. Family friends told me about a screaming match at Sunday brunch. Kayla accusing Mom of stealing from her boutique. Nate blaming Dad for dipping into the trust. Mom saying they were all running to me behind her back. Then a friend I hadn't talked to in months sent a voice note. They're blaming you, Sierra. Saying you're sabotaging them out of jealousy, that you're ungrateful. I sat with that. Jealous? Of being invisible until they needed something? Of being their backup plan but never their family unless it was a crisis? Number I was done. I sent a voice note back. They built their castle on my work. Duct tape and spreadsheets. I stepped away and it fell. That's not sabotage. That's gravity. The whispers turned into shouts fast. Without me to fix their messes, they needed a villain, and I was the easy pick, the one who'd been their crutch for years. Kayla struck first, posting on social media about family betrayal and how some people only stay if they can control you. Her bridal clients and yoga buddies lapped it up, flooding her with sympathy. But I knew that post was aimed at me. She wanted a fight. I wasn't giving her one. 2 days later, a friend called. Sierra, Kayla's crying at the salon, saying you're tanking her business because you're jealous she's getting married first. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. I'd bankrolled 3 of her failed businesses, fixed her trashed credit, co-signed her boutique lease. Jealous? Number I was just done. Then Nate went after me, telling our uncle, Dad's brother, a big shot in real estate, that I was deliberately ruining the family's finances to seize control. Uncle Henry called, furious. Sierra, what the hell? Why pull out now when everything depends on you? I kept calm. I didn't pull out to hurt anyone. I stepped back because I was used, not respected. Now it's showing. He snapped, You're tearing this family apart. I replied, No, I just stopped being the glue. He hung up. The next morning, an email from the family accountant hit my inbox. Urgent concerns. The trust. I opened it, bracing myself. Sierra, since you stepped down, there's been unauthorized withdrawals and mismanagement. I've tried warning your father and siblings, but they're ignoring me. Please advise. I stared at the screen. This was what I'd shielded them from. Accountability. Now it was catching up. Dad told his buddies I was holding the trust hostage, punishing everyone. The man who once called me the numbers genius of the Hawthorns now labeled me bitter and unstable. Mom? She stayed silent, not defending me to Kayla, Nate, or Uncle Henry. That hurt more than the accusations. I wasn't the villain, but I wasn't their golden child anymore either. I'd been the fixer, the one keeping their lives and reputations intact. Now I was the scapegoat, the outcast. They weren't mad because I hurt them. They were mad because I stopped saving them. And the more they pointed fingers, the clearer it became to everyone. Even them, who'd really been holding the family together all this time. I wasn't just cut off. They were trying to erase me. I felt it the day I walked into a charity fundraiser I'd co-sponsored for years. The donor board? No mention of the Hawthorne Family Foundation. No trace of me. Just the Hawthorne Legacy Fund, chaired by Nathaniel Hawthorne. It took all I had not to tear that plaque down. Instead, I handed the coordinator a check for a military scholarship, forced a smile, and left before anyone could corner me. Their message was clear. They weren't just mad. They were rewriting history, pretending I'd never held things together. But I didn't stay silent, and people started to notice. It began quietly. An old business partner of Dad's emailed, "Heard some odd things about your family. Doesn't sound like you. You okay?" Then my old mentor, Colonel Marcus Hayes, messaged after hearing at a conference that I'd gone rogue. He laughed it off. "Rogue? You're calculated, Sierra, never reckless." Then came a post from an Army spouse, a former client of Kayla's. She shared how someone in the Hawthorne family saved her home from foreclosure, asking nothing in return. Comments poured in. Was it Sierra? That's her style. She was always the backbone. Their rewritten story was falling apart. The real blow came from Grandma. She called out of the blue from her assisted living home, sharp as ever. "They're lying about you, aren't they?" she said. No nonsense. My throat caught. "They're trying to," I managed. "I knew it," she snapped. "Your father loves credit without work. Your siblings? Useless with money, soft as spoiled fruit." I laughed, tears stinging. She remembered me at 10, catching a decimal error in Grandpa's farm account, saving them $14,000. "You didn't even ask for thanks," she said. "I haven't forgotten, Sierra. I won't let them bury you." Her words hit like armor. I didn't need validation, but knowing she saw me, really saw me, meant everything. Others started seeing it too. Investors bailed on Nate's sketchy property deal. Old clients, veterans, and government contacts reached out, asking for consultations or to speak on panels. A senior DoD advisor even offered me a lead role in a financial ethics initiative for transitioning officers. "This isn't about them," he said. "It's about you." That's when it clicked. I didn't need to fight their lies with noise. I just had to stand still and let the truth speak louder. Reputations built on real work don't fade under gossip. They sharpen, they rise. While my family tried to paint me as the problem, the world saw me for what I'd always been, the solution. I stood on the edge of their chaos, realizing I didn't need to raise my voice. They were doing it for me. Nate's investments were collapsing, whispers of mismanaged funds and failed land deals spilling out. His legacy fund board was fracturing, rumors of infighting spreading fast. Kayla's perfect image cracked too. Anonymous posts showed her snarky client texts, donor manipulations, and an email blaming me for turning people against the family. I didn't leak them. I didn't need to. People who'd stayed quiet were finally talking. This wasn't revenge. It was the truth breaking through the cracks they'd tried to hide. But for real closure, not just watching them fall, I needed to reclaim what was mine. Not money or titles, but the truth and the legacy I'd built before they erased me. I started with the family trust. I hadn't touched it after they cut me out, but I knew it inside and out. Every clause, every detail I'd crafted when they leaned on me. Years ago, I'd insisted on a transparency clause. Any major change in leadership or fund use without the original executor, me, would trigger a third-party audit, freezing assets until it was done. Dad had shrugged. "Why? We're family." I'd said, "It's just smart." He didn't argue. He should have. Now, I filed the trigger notice. 2 days later, the legacy fund was frozen. Investigators dug into current mismanagement, tracing back to intent and fraud. Nate's voicemail screamed at legal teams. Kayla posted cryptic stories about fake family and a sister who couldn't let go. They scrambled, panicked. I waited. A journalist from a military financial blog called, "We're covering financial abuse in family charities. Your name keeps coming up, as the one who kept it together and the one who exposed it." I agreed to talk, but only after the audit. When the report came, it was brutal. Misused funds, fake charities, undisclosed bonuses to Nate and Kayla, even property tax fraud tied to veterans' donations. All after I left. My lawyer said, "We can sue." I said, "No need." The next board meeting was public, and I'd reserved a seat. I wasn't going as the angry daughter or scapegoated sister, but as the woman they tried to erase, armed with documents, witnesses, and truth. They'd made me an outsider. Now I'd walk in, not to beg for a place, but to flip their table and build something honest on the ruins. Something mine, that they couldn't steal or rewrite. I walked into that boardroom and the silence hit me like a wall. 12 suits turned to stare. Some surprised, some avoiding my eyes. Nate sat at the head trying to look calm, but his tapping fingers gave him away. He didn't think I'd show. Dad stood behind him, arms crossed, his glare saying, "You were warned." I didn't blink. I walked in like I owned the place. Because I did. My navy suit was sharp, no frills, just me. No makeup, no jewelry, just truth. I took an unassigned chair, set my folder down, and said, "Before the vote, I'd like to speak." The room tensed. Mr. Calhoun, the oldest board member, nodded. 5 minutes. I stood. Most of you haven't seen me in a year. Some heard I walked away, that I was unstable, a liability. That's a lie. I was pushed out, stripped of access, silenced. I paused, letting it land. For 11 years, I ran the Hawthorne Family Trust. I saved us from 3 financial disasters, kept our reputation spotless even when others messed up behind closed doors. I glanced at Nate. He flinched. I stayed quiet because I thought loyalty mattered more than praise. But when I said no once, I was gone. My father sent me this. I tapped my phone and the projector showed his text. "You're not one of us anymore. Don't come back." A board member gasped. "That wasn't just cruel," I said. "It was a move to erase me so someone else could step in." Nate shifted. Dad's jaw clenched. I opened my folder. "Let's talk numbers." I laid out transaction records, memos, emails, showing fund missteps, trustee changes, and shady investments tied to Nate, approved by Dad. "Here's the kicker," I said, pulling up a slide. "A Cayman shell account opened 2 months before I was out, redirecting emergency funds. Guess who signed it?" Nate's signature flashed on the screen. He shot up, slamming the table. "This is slander." "It's a forensic audit," I shot back, ice cold. "Done by an outside firm, not me." Dad jumped in. "Sierra, this is family business, not for strangers." I didn't raise my voice. "You stopped being family when you buried the truth." I faced the board. Today's vote isn't just about Nate's promotion. It's about choosing integrity or covering up fraud. I've sent all evidence to the Legal Oversight Committee. You'll hear from them soon. I didn't sit. I walked out, leaving the truth to burn behind me. I didn't look back. The tide had turned. I thought the boardroom showdown was the hardest part, but what came next showed me something bigger. Their system was breaking from within. 3 days after the vote, Julia Lawson called. She'd been my grandfather's estate attorney forever, always loyal to the Hawthorne name, always steady. Now her voice shook. "Sierra, we need to meet, in person." We met at a quiet cafe, far from prying eyes. Julia's hands trembled as she sat down. "I stayed silent out of fear," she said. "But after your presentation, I can't anymore." I leaned in. "What do you know?" She swallowed, then slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were my grandfather's original trust documents, signatures, clauses, protections I'd never seen. "Your name was permanent on the trustee list," she whispered. "Irremovable unless you committed a federal crime." "But Dad erased it," I said, my voice flat. Julia nodded. "They forged an amendment with your grandfather's letterhead. I refused to sign it, so they found another lawyer." Heat surged through me. Not anger, but clarity. I wasn't imagining things. This was real. Then the emails started. First anonymous, then from familiar names. Evelyn Tran, Dad's old assistant, wrote, "After the vote, I checked the archives. There are recordings from staff meetings, plans to rotate you out. Files attached." Terrence Miles, the IT director, added, "I was told to scrub files before. After your move, I dug into backups. There's more." People who'd stayed quiet at family dinners or meetings were now reaching out, picking my side. The press caught wind. A finance journal ran a piece. The quiet exile of Sierra Hawthorne, when loyalty is a liability. Bigger outlets followed, then a podcast. I stayed silent, but the fire was spreading and my family couldn't control it. Nate tried damage control, issuing a statement denying everything, calling the audit manipulative and my actions emotional. But he sounded desperate, and people noticed. At the next review, 2 board members who'd backed him abstained. A third withdrew support. Donors froze contributions, partnerships stalled. I hadn't even filed my full legal motion yet. With Julia and a new, untainted legal team, I built a case. Fraud, forgery, financial abuse, breach of duty, quiet, precise. I let my family think the storm was passing. But I knew. We were just in the eye, and the real hit was coming. I braced for pushback when I announced the lawsuit, but I didn't expect them to try to frame me. 2 weeks after my legal team filed for financial misconduct and forgery, 2 federal agents showed up at my door with a search warrant. "Ms. Hawthorne," one said, "we have allegations of financial misappropriation tied to an offshore account in your name." My stomach churned, not from guilt, but from rage. They were trying to pin their crimes on me. I let them into my office, staying calm. I knew this game from my Army days auditing high-stakes accounts. Accuse the accuser, muddy the waters, stall the truth. But they didn't count on one thing. I had proof. Months before, I'd hired 2 cybersecurity firms, one in California, one overseas, to trace every digital move in the Hawthorne Trust for a decade. Every login, transfer, IP address. The offshore account with my name? It wasn't mine. Logs pointed to a device registered to Dad's retired assistant, routed through a Bahamas VPN. The clincher? The account was opened while I was deployed, with time-stamped military clearance logs as my alibi. When the agents asked their questions, I handed them a flash drive. "Look at this," I said. 15 minutes later, their tone shifted. "We'll need to follow up with your father's team," one said. I nodded. "You should." The investigation leaked, and my family spun it. "Disgraced daughter lashes out after exposure." A headline screamed, "Trust fund heiress in offshore scandal." But the internet moved faster. An investigative journalist I'd briefed dropped an exposé. Frame by blood, how the Hawthornes tried to bury Sierra and failed. It laid out timelines, emails, forensics, and Julia Lawson's first public statement. Their story fell apart. Former staff, secretaries, interns, even the family chauffeur came forward. One said, "We were told to scrub files and never say Sierra's name." The snowball grew. A congressional committee demanded trust documents. The DOJ flagged transactions. Dad was subpoenaed. He held a press conference, voice steady, smile practiced, but his eyes betrayed panic. I wasn't just a problem now. I was a threat. To a man like him, nothing was worse than a daughter who wouldn't stay silent. This wasn't revenge. It was truth. For every daughter disowned for saying no, every woman silenced for power's sake, every soldier betrayed after serving. They thought they were fighting a girl, but I was never just in the background. I held the ledger, and now I held the match. 3 days before the first court hearing, I made one final move. Quiet, personal, just me and my father. His assistant tried to block me at his office door, but one look and she stepped aside. Inside, he sat behind his old mahogany desk, the one I used to hide under as a kid, thinking he ruled the world. Now he looked worn, his polish fraying at the edges. "Didn't think you'd have the guts to face me," he said, not looking up. I shut the door, sat across from him. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here for clarity." He scoffed. "You're gloating." "No," I said, leaning in. "Tomorrow, subpoenas drop, then auditors. Next week, you're in court, answering for what you did to me, to this family." He met my eyes. I went on. "I'm giving you one out. Step down. Sign over your trust stake. Retire with some dignity. Or—" I slid a folder across the desk. He opened it. Photos, documents, audio, testimonies, proof he set up the fake offshore account, altered trust documents, and siphoned veterans' charity funds. His voice tightened. "You recorded me?" "No," I said. "Your allies did when they saw the tide turning." He gripped the folder. "You do this to your own blood?" "You did this," I said, unshaken. I just stopped covering it up. He stared, then shut the folder. "I built this empire." "And I saved it for years," I replied. "Even when you didn't deserve it." I stood, pausing at the door. "One last thing. The press will want a quote when this breaks. Try not to make it about me." I walked out. The next morning, headlines hit. Hawthorne patriarch steps down amid scandal. Sierra Hawthorne targeted in family cover-up. The story shifted. Not just about fraud, but legacy, loyalty, the cost of silence. I walked into the courthouse in a navy suit, steady, eyes forward. A reporter yelled, "Ms. Hawthorne, any comment?" I paused, then said, "You don't choose your family, but you choose who you protect and who you stop protecting." I entered the courtroom, not just for me, but for everyone cast out, told they didn't belong. This time, I'd win. The sun warmed my shoulders as I stepped out of the car, a gentle breeze brushing my hair back, like a whisper of how far I'd traveled to get here. My heels clicked on the Capitol's marble steps, and camera flashes popped around me like 4th of July fireworks. Reporters shouted my name, their voices blending into a roar I didn't bother to untangle. I wasn't here for them. I was here because I'd fought for this moment. Inside the Grand Hall, every seat was filled. Military brass, politicians, economists, even folks who once doubted my loyalty sat shoulder to shoulder. Up front, beneath the Department of Defense seal, was the podium where I'd speak. Not just as a soldier or a numbers whiz, but as a woman who'd been cast out by her own blood and built herself back up. Walking down the aisle, I spotted familiar faces. General Thompson gave me a nod, his eyes shining with pride. Next to him was Secretary Langdon, who'd once scoffed at my ideas in public but now sat with a hand over his heart, quiet and respectful. In the back, half hidden, were 2 men from my father's old business crowd. They used to mutter about me over cigars. They didn't look so smug now. They looked small. The moderator's voice broke through the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for Lieutenant Colonel Sierra Hawthorne." The applause hit like a storm. Not polite claps, but a roar that shook the room. I stepped to the podium, my heart steady, my hands sure. My notes sat there, untouched. I didn't need them. "Years ago," I began, "I got a message that cut deep. No warning, no kindness, just words. You're not one of us anymore. Don't come back." The room went quiet. Those words stuck with me. They sank into me, broke me apart, and then somehow put me back together. When someone tells you you don't belong, you learn to make a home in yourself. I saw heads nod, a few eyes shining with tears. I wasn't cast out because I failed. I was pushed away because I stopped saying yes. I stopped cleaning up their messes. I stopped carrying their comfort at the cost of my own peace. And when I did, their world started to crack. I looked straight at the cameras, knowing my words were reaching far beyond this room. I'm not here for applause or approval. I'm here to show that no one, not family, not a boardroom, not some twisted legacy, gets to decide who you are. That's your power. The clapping started again. Some stood, some wiped their eyes. I glanced at the presidential medal on the table beside me. This award isn't about settling scores. It's proof that quiet strength speaks loud when it matters, that you can be written out of a will and still write your own story. I paused, letting the words sink in. When I walked away from my family, I stepped into the unknown. But in that empty space, I found the me they tried to bury. The one who didn't need their approval, their money, or their apologies. The room held its breath, the silence heavy with meaning. I'm Sierra Hawthorne, soldier, strategist, survivor, builder, and I stand here today. Taller, stronger, freer than the day I left. As I stepped back, the crowd rose, their applause carrying more than praise. They got it. They saw their own struggles in mine, their own betrayals, their own breakthroughs. Someone handed me the medal as I left the stage. It was heavier than I expected, but not in a bad way. It felt like the end of one chapter and the start of another. I never went back. Not to the old estate, not to those awkward family dinners, not even to the house I bailed out when Dad's third business flop left them drowning in debt. But the quiet from them? That was new. It hit different, heavy in its own way. For months, I didn't hear a peep. No calls, no apologies, not even a half-baked excuse. But word got around. Whispers, news clips, a government investigation here, a frozen account there. It started small, like cracks spreading under a shaky foundation. Dad's trust fund, or what was left after years of sketchy deals and quiet pocket lining, got slapped with an audit. The system I'd built to keep it afloat? They thought they could swap it out, cut corners, sneak a little extra for themselves. They weren't me. The new firm they hired missed key regulations, and by the time the IRS showed up, it was over. Frozen assets, back taxes piling up. One of Dad's old buddies turned snitch to save his skin. Another went broke trying to dodge the fallout. The estate? Gone. Seized. The family business? Wiped out. Dad? Silent as a ghost. I was in my downtown office, working on a program to teach veterans about managing money when the email popped up. Subject: request for meeting. From Raymond Hawthorne. I stared at his name for a long time before clicking. Sierra, I know I messed up. I know I said things I can Joanna take back. Can we talk? 1 hour, that's all I ask. Dad. No sorry. No accountability, just regret when it suited him. I didn't write back, but I did look him up. There he was, in a blurry courthouse photo slipping out the back. Hair thin, shoulders sagging, no press, no driver, no pride. Just a man brought low by the system he thought he'd outsmarted. I closed the browser. A week later, another email came. My cousin Ivy, who once laughed at me over Thanksgiving dinner, calling me a tightwad while sipping $80 wine I'd paid for. Hi, Sierra. It's been a while. Things are tough. Grandpa left us nothing. Dad's accounts are frozen. I could use help with my student loans. Any chance you could pitch in? I sat on it, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted the words to be right. Hi, Ivy. I'm sorry you're struggling, but I can't fix problems I didn't make anymore. Take care, Sierra. Then I blocked her. That silence felt good. Clean. No yelling, no slamming doors, no angry outbursts. Just quiet. Like the calm after a storm. Like a house already crumbled. Like broken glass no one bothers to sweep up. They'd laughed at me, pushed me out, used me as a shield until I broke and stopped saving them. Now their world was in pieces. Me? I was building something new. Brick by brick from the stones they'd thrown. One night, I sat on my building's rooftop, the city lights sparkling like stars that never fade. No wine, no party, no big speech. Just me, my journal, and a quiet mind. I thought of Dad, not with anger or sadness, but like a distant memory. A lesson from a book I'd closed. He didn't teach me love. He taught me loss. And more than that, how to stand back up. My phone buzzed later that night. Another unknown number. Probably another relative. I didn't answer, just smiled. I didn't need to settle the score. Their silence said it all. Looking back, it's not the sting of betrayal that lingers. It's the years I poured out. The sacrifices I made and how they never really saw me. They cut me loose with a single text. Cold and final. But that silence? It turned out to be a blessing. In that empty space, I found myself again. Stronger, clearer, unbreakable. I used to carry their burdens like they were mine. Now, I only hold on to what lifts me up, what moves me forward. The woman I am today? She doesn't beg for a seat at anyone's table. She builds her own. If you've ever felt left behind by the people you fought for, if you've ever heard you're not one of us anymore, then this story is yours. And if you're still listening, still here, I know you felt something. So do me a favor. Give this video a like. Hit that subscribe button. Click the bell so you don't miss what's next. Because here, we're not just telling stories for drama. We're sharing the real ones. Raw, true, and unforgettable. This is Sierra Hawthorne signing off for now. But believe me, I'm just warming up. 6 months after the trial, I left the old town behind. Not because I was running, but because I needed space to breathe. Truly breathe, free from curious stares and whispered gossip. I settled into a small house on the outskirts where an ancient oak tree cast shade over the front yard. Every morning, I'd sit beneath it, coffee in hand, letting the world slow down. The trial was over, but its echoes lingered. Nathaniel got 3 years for financial fraud and forgery. Kayla shuttered her boutique, auctioning off assets to pay debts. Mom stepped back from the spotlight. Her grand speech is gone. Dad? He vanished from the scene, holed up in some modest apartment, his name no longer tied to power. I didn't take joy in their collapse. It left me hollow, like finishing a long mission only to find the victory wasn't as sweet as expected. One afternoon, reading under the oak, the doorbell rang. I was surprised to see Julia Lawson standing there holding a box of homemade cookies. I was in the neighborhood, she said softly. Thought I'd stop by. We sat on the porch, sharing cookies and light stories, steering clear of the past. But then she fixed me with that sharp gaze of hers. You've changed, Sierra. Not the way they said. Stronger, freer. I smiled faintly. I just learned to stop carrying what isn't mine. Julia nodded, then handed me an old envelope. This was your grandfather's. He wanted you to have it, but I was told to wait until you were ready. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, his firm script recounting my childhood. How I'd catch errors in the farm's books, how proud he was of me. At the end, he wrote, Sierra, never let them dim your light. You're the keeper of the flame, not the ashes. I folded it, eyes stinging. Not from grief, but from knowing I'd lived up to what he saw in me. After Julia left, I returned to the oak, phone in hand. A message from Colonel Hayes waited. How's the new place? Ready to lead that defense finance project? We need you. I grinned, typing back. Give me a week. I'm enjoying the shade. I set the phone down, leaned back, and let the breeze rustle through the oak's leaves. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to race or prove anything. I didn't have to be the fixer, the shield, or the forgotten one. I just had to be Sierra. And under this tree, that was enough. A year after settling under the oak, life felt different. Not louder, but clearer. The small house had become my sanctuary, its walls holding only the weight I chose to carry. The world outside, though, kept moving, and my name was no longer tied to the Hawthorne collapse. It was tied to something new. The defense finance project Colonel Hayes mentioned? I took it. Not right away. I gave myself that week under the oak. But when I stepped in, it was like slipping back into my old army boots. The work was tough, restructuring financial systems for transitioning veterans, ensuring their benefits weren't lost in bureaucratic cracks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Every spreadsheet I balanced, every policy I shaped, felt like a brick laid in a foundation that was mine alone. People started noticing again, but not in the way they used to. No longer the Hawthorne girl or the one who brought down her family. Now it was Sierra Hawthorne, the financial strategist, or the veterans advocate. Invitations came, panels, keynotes, even a guest lecture at a military academy. I said yes to some, no to others. I wasn't chasing clout. I was building something real. One spring morning, as I sipped coffee under the oak, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text, a real handwritten letter postmarked from the assisted living home. Grandma's handwriting, still sharp despite her age. Sierra, it began, I've been watching you from afar. Not just proud, fierce. You've done what I never could. Stood up and walked away without looking back. But there's one thing left. Come see me. I drove out that weekend. The home smelled of antiseptic and lavender, but Grandma's room was a time capsule. Photos of the farm, Grandpa's old hat on a shelf, and her eyes bright as ever fixed on me. You look good, she said, waving off my attempt to help her sit up. Strong, not just in the head, but in the soul. I laughed. You're still tough as nails. Had to be, she said, smirking. Then her face softened. I'm leaving you the farm. I froze. The farm, the one I'd saved at 10 with a caught decimal. The one that held every childhood memory before things got complicated. Grandma, No arguments, she cut in. It's not just land. It's yours. Always was. They can't touch it, legally or otherwise. I made sure tears pricked my eyes, but I nodded. Thank you. She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't thank me. Build something on it. Not for them, for you. That night, driving home, I felt the weight of her words settle in. The farm wasn't just a gift. It was a challenge. A chance to plant roots that weren't tangled in their mess. A month later, I started sketching plans. Not a grand estate or a family empire, just a small training center for veterans, a place to teach financial literacy, to give them tools to rebuild after service. I'd fund it myself, with the money I'd saved from years of quiet discipline. No trusts, no family strings. One evening, as I worked on the plans under the oak, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. It was Kayla. Her voice was soft, hesitant, nothing like the venom of before. Sierra, I don't expect you to forgive me. I saw the article about your veterans project. It's good. Really good. I waited, not sure what she wanted. I messed up, she said. We all did. I don't know how to fix it, but I'm trying. I didn't owe her a response. But something in me softened, just a fraction. Keep trying, I said, then hung up. I leaned back, the oak shade cool against my skin. The past was still there, scars and all, but it didn't own me. I was building something new. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. And as the breeze stirred the leaves, I knew. The roots I was planting now would outlast their empire's ashes. The first sign of trouble came from Kayla, not my parents. At 7 a.m., my phone rang, her voice frantic. Sierra, the florist's check bounced and the venue says Nate's balance is overdue. You handled that? What's going on? I stayed quiet, letting the silence settle. Then calmly, I said, I don't handle it anymore. I hung up, her shock practically echoing through the line. That one call started it all. By afternoon, a friend at the bank tipped me off. The family trust was frozen. I'd withdrawn my signature authority as the financial officer, leaving no one to manage the funds. I didn't do it to hurt them. I just stopped carrying their weight. And just like that, they realized I wasn't just part of their system. I was the system. That night, my cousin Julie called. She'd seen Dad storm up to Mom's house, red-faced, yelling about, who's gonna clean this up now? And how could she walk away? Me, he meant. Let him yell, I told her. No one's listening. Julie paused. Sierra, they're falling apart. Mom slammed the door on him, said she warned him this would happen. I smiled, the first real one in days. The cracks were spreading. Nate texted the next morning, no apology, just a demand. You can't ghost us and leave us hanging. I've got a business, Kayla's got a wedding in 3 weeks. Fix this. No please, just entitlement, like I was their employee, not their sister. I didn't reply. I forwarded his text to my lawyer with a note. This is what happens when you feed entitlement too long. By Friday, things broke wide open. Kayla's boutique was under review for unpaid suppliers threatening lawsuits. I used to fix those quietly, but not now. Dad's side investments, ones I'd kept afloat with clever accounting, were crumbling as clients bailed. Mom tried to hold it together, but even she couldn't stop the chaos. Family friends told me about a screaming match at Sunday brunch, Kayla accusing Mom of stealing from her boutique, Nate blaming Dad for dipping into the trust, Mom saying they were all running to me behind her back. Then a friend I hadn't talked to in months sent a voice note. "They're blaming you, Sierra, saying you're sabotaging them out of jealousy, that you're ungrateful." I sat with that. Jealous? Of being invisible until they needed something? Of being their backup plan but never their family unless it was a crisis? I was done. I sent a voice note back. They built their castle on my work. Duct tape and spreadsheets. I stepped away and it fell. That's not sabotage. That's gravity. 3 years after the trial, Haven House stood as more than a training center. It was a beacon. Veterans from across the country came to learn, not just about money, but about resilience. The farm, once a faded memory, was now a living legacy, its fields buzzing with purpose. I'd expanded the program, adding mental health workshops and job placement services, all funded by grants I'd secured and profits from my own consulting work. The oak tree still shaded my mornings, but now it also shaded the stories of those who'd found their footing here. The Hawthorne name had faded into obscurity. Nathaniel was out of prison, living quietly somewhere upstate, no longer a player in anyone's game. Kayla had moved to a new city, starting over with a small online business. Nothing grand, but honest from what I heard. Mom sent occasional emails, brief updates about her life, but we didn't meet again. Dad passed away last winter, quietly, in his apartment. I didn't attend the funeral. Not out of spite, but because I'd already said my goodbyes under his desk years ago, when I realized the man I idolized wasn't real. I didn't dwell on them anymore. Their shadows no longer reached me. One crisp fall evening, as I locked up Haven House, a young man approached, a veteran who'd completed our program months earlier. He held out a letter, his hands steady but his eyes nervous. "I wrote this for you," he said. Didn't know how else to say it. I read it later, under the oak. He wrote about losing everything after his discharge. His home, his family, his hope. He'd come to Haven House expecting nothing, but left with a job, a plan, and a sense of worth. "You didn't just save me," he ended. "You showed me I could save myself. I'll never forget that." I folded the letter, tucking it into the box where I kept Grandpa's note and a few other keepsakes. It wasn't about the praise. It was about the proof. Proof that I'd built something lasting, something that didn't need their name or their lies to stand tall. That night, I hosted a small gathering at Haven House, a celebration for our 3rd anniversary. Veterans, staff, and a few local supporters filled the room, their laughter mixing with the clink of glasses. Colonel Hayes raised a toast, his voice booming. "To Sierra Hawthorne," he said, "who turned ashes into fire and fire into home." I smiled but didn't speak. I didn't need to. The room, the people, the purpose said it all. Later, alone under the oak, I looked at the stars. The past was a scar, faint now, no longer raw. I wasn't the girl who fixed their empire or the soldier who fought their battles. I wasn't even the daughter they tried to erase. I was Sierra, keeper of the flame my grandfather saw in me, lighting a path for others to find their own. And as the wind whispered through the leaves, I knew. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. One I'd earned. One I'd chosen. One that would burn bright long after I was gone.